You must be mature and secure enough to take in people's criticism without defensiveness and learn from it. Become a chief encourager of your team. For many years, I've enjoyed the relationship of the Cathy family, the leaders of Chick-fil-A. One day I was having dinner with Truett Cathy, the company's founder, and he said, "Do you know how I identify someone who needs encouragement? If the person is breathing, they need a pat on the back." I have yet to meet a person who doesn't enjoy and benefit from encouragement. No one is too successful, old, experienced, or educated to appreciate positive praise and encouragement from another person. A great example of this can be found in the lives of two talented authors and teachers, C.S. Lewis and J.R.R. Tolkien. The friends, both professors at Oxford, often met to share with each other the fiction they were writing. When Tolkien was writing The Lord of the Rings, he became discouraged. Lewis continually encouraged his friend to keep writing. "Told her, where's the next chapter? You can't give up now," Lewis would chide. In later years, Tolkien acknowledged how much a difference Lewis's positive input had made. "The unspeakable debt I owe him cannot be fathomed," wrote Tolkien. "For long, he was my only audience." As a leader, you have great power to lift people up, Mother Teresa said. Kind words can be short and easy to speak, but their echoes are endless. I'm sure Lewis's encouraging words echoed in Tolkien's ears as he labored to write his fantasy masterpiece. As a leader, you can have a similar impact on others. People enjoy affirmation from a peer, but they really value it from their leader. The words, "I'm glad you work with me. You add incredible value to the team," mean a lot coming from someone who has the best interest of the team, department, or organization at heart. If you want people to be positive and to always be glad when they see you coming, encourage them. If you become the chief encourager of the people on your team, they will work hard and strive to meet your positive expectations. Number 5, strike a balance between care and candor. Many people get the wrong idea about the concept of permissional leadership when they become acquainted with it. Some think that succeeding on the permission level of leadership means treating the people on their team like family. That is almost always a mistake. People don't deal realistically with their family. I don't. I have a commitment level with them that is deeper than with others. Regardless of what they do, I am committed to giving them unconditional love. They have privileges that I extend to no other people. And compromise is a constant. Anyone who says they don't believe in compromise has never been married or stayed married. What makes a family great isn't what makes a team great. Families value community over contribution. Businesses value contribution over community. The best teams strike a balance. Others think being a permissional leader means giving team members permission to do whatever they want. That idea is also wrong. Just because you care about people doesn't mean you let them work without responsibility or accountability. If you care about people, treat them with respect and build positive relationships with them. You actually have more numerous opportunities to speak candidly and have hard conversations with them that will help them to grow and perform better. Every person has problems and makes mistakes in the workplace. Every person needs to improve and needs someone to come alongside of them and help them improve. As a leader, it is your responsibility and your privilege to be the person who helps them get better. That often begins with candid conversation. But before you have it, it helps to ask yourself what the nature of the problem might be. My friend Sam Chan says that when he is having difficulty with a person, he asks himself one simple question. Is this person a can't or a won't? Can't is about their abilities. We can help these kind of people in most cases, not in all cases, but in most. But won't is about attitude. If the issue is attitude, the time to let that person know there is a problem is now. Because here's the deal. We hire people for what they know, and we fire them for who they are. I believe that people can change their attitudes and can improve their abilities. And because I do, I talk to them about where they're coming up short. If you're a leader and you want to help people, you need to be willing to have those tough conversations. So how does a leader handle being relational while still being able to move people forward? By balancing care and candor. Care without candor creates dysfunctional relationships. Candor without care creates distant relationships. But care balanced with candor creates developing relationships. Allow me to help you understand how care and candor work together to help a leader succeed on level 2. Caring values the person while candor values the person's potential. To lead successfully on levels 2 and higher, it is important for you to value people. That is foundational to solid relationships. Caring for others demonstrates that you value them. However, if you want to help them get better, you have to be honest about where they need to improve. That shows that you value the person's potential. That requires candor. One of the secrets of being candid is to think, speak, and act in terms of who the person has the potential to become, and to think about how you can help them to reach it. Proverbs says, "Faithful are the wounds of a friend, but deceitful are the kisses of an enemy." If you're candid with others, but with their benefit in mind, it doesn't have to be harmful. It can be similar to the work of a surgeon. It may hurt, but it is meant to help them, and it shouldn't harm. As a leader, you must be willing and able to do that. If not, you won't be able to help your people grow and change. Caring establishes the relationship while candor expands the relationship. The things that usually help to establish a relationship are common ground and care. But those things usually aren't enough to make a relationship grow. To expand a relationship, candor and open communication are required. Most leaders I talk to have a difficult conversation that they know they need to have but are avoiding. Usually they are reluctant for one of two reasons. Either they don't like confrontation or they fear that they will hurt the person they need to talk to. But if a leader can balance care and candor, it will actually deepen and strengthen the relationship. Let me give you an example. Cheryl came to work for me because she was a real go-getter with a lot of potential. For 6 months, I watched her work, and what I discovered was that she was great at the hard side of leadership. She was energetic, she was organized, she was a good planner, and she always got things done. But she totally neglected the soft side of leadership, the relational part. She wasn't winning over anyone she was leading, and as a result, she wasn't gaining influence, which meant that her leadership was going to be very limited. I scheduled a meeting with her so that we could have a candid conversation about her leadership style. I let her know how much I respected her ability and how much I cared about her as a person. But I also let her know that she was falling short and how that would limit her in her ability to lead people. I also offered to coach her on the relational side. To her credit, she accepted my criticism and took my help. For the next couple years, I met with her regularly, critiqued her interaction with others, gave her reading assignments, and asked her to do things that would stretch her. She blossomed as a leader and began to win people on level 2, and that freed her up to keep growing. It wasn't long before she worked her way up to level 4 with many people in the organization. Not everyone responds well to candid conversations. Let's face it, honesty can hurt. Some people shut down when you criticize them. Others leave and work somewhere else. However, if you have candid conversations with someone and that person hangs in there and grows, she will make herself a candidate for the climb up to level 3 and beyond, just as Cheryl did. Caring defines the relationship while candor directs the relationship. Solid relationships are defined by how people care about one another. But just because people care about one another doesn't mean that they are going anywhere together. Getting the team moving together to accomplish a goal is the responsibility of a leader, and it often requires candor. My friend Colin Sewell, owner of several auto dealerships, said to me, "Leaders have to make the best decision for the largest group of people. Therefore, leaders give up the right to cater to an individual if it hurts the team or the organization." Getting results always matters, and good leaders never lose track of that. One night at a basketball banquet, the president of a junior college was congratulating the coach and the team profusely. The beaming coach asked the president, "Would you still like me as much if we didn't win?" "I'd like you as much," the president replied. "I'd just miss having you around." Retired Army General and former Secretary of State Colin Powell noted, "Good leadership involves responsibility to the welfare of the group, which means that some people will get angry at your actions and decisions. It's inevitable if you're honorable. If you want to lead people well, you need to be willing to direct them candidly." Caring should never suppress candor, while candor should never displace caring. The bottom line, which has already become very clear, is that good leaders must embrace both care and candor. You can't ignore either. So to help you keep the balance between the two, I've created a caring candor checklist for working with people. Before having a candid conversation, make sure that you can answer yes to the following questions. Have I invested enough in the relationship to be candid with them? Do I truly value them as people? Am I sure this is their issue and not mine? Am I sure I'm not speaking up because I feel threatened? Is the issue more important than the relationship? Does this conversation clearly serve their interest and not just mine? Am I willing to invest time and energy to help them change? Am I willing to show them how to do something, not just say what's wrong? Am I willing and able to set clear, specific expectations? If you can answer yes to all of these questions, then your motives are probably right and you have a good chance of being able to communicate effectively. As a young leader, I found it very difficult to have candid conversations with people. I often postponed those difficult talks, hoping that an issue would go away. Seldom did that happen. Maybe you relate to that. If so, you'll be glad to hear that you're normal. However, you need to know that candid conversations are a leader's responsibility and must be done, but in the right way, with the right attitude. When an employee is hired to get a certain job done and doesn't, that hurts the team and the organization. And then it's time for the leader to take action. That can be very hard, but in the long term, it is the best not only for the organization, but also for the person who needs to hear what's not going right. The next time you find yourself in a place where you need to have a candid conversation, just remember this. Do it quickly. Shovel the pile while it is small. Do it calmly. Never in anger. Use the caring candor checklist. Do it privately. You want to help the person, not embarrass him or her. Do it thoughtfully, in a way that minimizes embarrassment or intimidation. If your goal is to help the individual, improve the team, and fulfill the vision of the organization, then this is the path you should follow as a leader. As you work with people and have candid conversations, allow me to remind you of one more thing. Candidness is a two-way street. If you want to be an effective leader and earn your way onto level 2, you must allow the people you work with to be candid with you. You must solicit feedback. And you must be mature and secure enough to take in people's criticism without defensiveness and learn from it. Leadership expert Warren Bennis observed, effective leaders reward dissent as well as encourage it. They understand that whatever momentary discomfort they experience as a result of being told from time to time that they are wrong is more than offset by the fact that reflective backtalk increases a leader's ability to make good decisions. Caring for people, making good decisions for everyone involved, and building solid relationships is what level 2 is all about. This is permission at its best. The laws of leadership at the permission level. If you want to use the laws of leadership to help you grow and win permission on level 2, then consider the following. The law of influence. The true measure of leadership is influence. Nothing more, nothing less. If you boil leadership down to its essence, it is influence. Leaders help people work together to accomplish goals that benefit everyone involved. How does one person get others to do something willingly, excellently, and consistently? By influencing them. When I first developed the 5 levels, I called it the 5 levels of influence. Why? Because each time a leader climbs a level, their influence increases. The influencing process begins at level 2, where relationships are formed. That is where leadership begins the shift from coercion to cooperation. The law of addition. Leaders add value by serving others. Why do people initially want to be in leadership? Is it to gain power? To have more freedom? To receive a bigger paycheck? To feed their ego? Many times leaders begin their careers with selfish motives. Maybe that's not a good thing, but it doesn't have to be a bad thing if we are willing to change and put our focus on others. I have observed that most level 1 leaders who have no desire to move up to level 2 permission haven't gotten beyond the selfishness of wanting a leadership position for their own benefit. To move up to level 2, leaders need to understand that great leaders practice the law of addition. They lead in order to help people and add value to them. The law of solid ground. Trust is the foundation of leadership. Trust is the foundation not only of leadership relationships, but of all relationships. You cannot influence people who don't trust you. You cannot build positive relationships with people if they perceive you negatively. Trust is a glue that holds people together. Trust begins at level 2, and it grows as you climb to the higher levels of leadership. If people trust you, they will be willing to move upward with you. Without trust, you'll quickly find yourself back down at level 1. The law of magnetism. Who you are is who you attract. I've studied leadership dynamics since I was a teenager, and something I've noticed early is that birds of a feather flock together. It is a fact of life that like-minded people are attracted to one another. Groups of people tend to be of similar age, values, and background. I've also seen that leaders attract who they are, not necessarily who they want. As you gain influence in your department or organization, that can be good news or bad news. If the people who start flocking to you are relational, non-territorial, teachable, and productive, then that is a positive statement about your leadership. If they are positional, closed-minded, and unmotivated, then that reflects negatively on your leadership. If you want to change your team, then change yourself. The law of connection. Leaders touch your heart before they ask for a hand. If you want to build relationships and gain people's permission to lead them, then work hard to connect with them. I define connecting as having the ability to identify with and relate to people in such a way that it increases your influence with them. That is what you must do on level 2 to win them over and earn the right to lead them. The law of buy-in. People buy into the leader, then the vision. Leaders are by nature visionary. They have great hopes. They have big dreams. They want to win and win big. But a great vision without a great team often turns into a nightmare. Teamwork makes the dream work. I'll discuss how to build a team on level 3. Often leaders share their visions with me and then ask, "Do you think my people will buy into my vision?" When they ask me this, I know they don't understand level 2 permission and probably haven't won it yet with their people. Why do I say that? Because they're asking the wrong question. Instead, they should be asking, have my people bought into me? The size or the worthiness of a leader's vision often isn't what determines whether it will be achieved. The determining factor is usually the level of the leader. Before you ask people to move forward to achieve the vision, they must first buy into you as a leader. Before they buy into you as a leader, you must have earned their trust and gained permission to lead them. That begins on level number 2. Beliefs that help a leader move up to level number 3. Moving up to level 2 from level 1 is a significant advance in leadership ability. Very often, an achiever or a producer will be given a leadership position at level 1 with the expectation that that person can make the transition from worker to leader. Most of the people who fail to move up into leadership don't make it because they never understand the importance of building relationships with people that they work with and gaining their permission to lead them. However, there are still more important leadership levels to be won. If you have worked your way up to level 2 with people and have gained their confidence as a person who cares about them, then it's time to start thinking about the way a level 3 leader does. To begin that shift, keep in mind the following 3 things. Number 1, relationships alone are not enough. Although the permission level may bring you and your team great satisfaction relationally, if you stay on level 2 and never advance, you won't really prove yourself as a leader. The good news is that if you have connected with your team, you have some influence with them. The question now is, what are you going to do with that influence? True leadership takes people somewhere so that they can accomplish something. That requires a leader to connect people's potential to their performance. The permission level is foundational to good leadership, but it is not your ultimate goal. Number 2, building relationships requires twofold growth. Throughout this chapter, I've talked about building relationships. In doing that, I focused on how people need to grow toward each other. But for relationships to be meaningful, there's another kind of growth that also is needed. People must also grow with each other. Growing toward each other requires compatibility. Growing with each other requires intentionality. If you are married or in a significant long-term relationship, then you probably understand how these dynamics come into play. When you first met your partner, you moved toward one another based on attraction, common ground, and shared experiences. You established the relationship. However, a relationship can't last if you never go beyond those initial experiences. To stay together, you need to sustain the relationship. That requires common growth. If you don't grow together, there's a very good chance you may grow apart. Similarly, if you are to have any staying power as a leader, you must grow toward and with your people. Just because you've developed good relationships with your people, don't think that you're done on the relational side. There's still more work to do. Number 3, achieving the vision as a team is worth risking the relationships. Building relationships with people can be hard work. But to succeed as a leader, to move up to the higher levels of leadership, you have to be willing to risk what you've developed relationally for the sake of the bigger picture. Leaders must be willing to sacrifice for the sake of the vision. If achieving the vision is worth building the team, it is also worth risking the relationships. Building relationships and then risking them to advance the team creates tension for a leader. That tension will force you to make a choice, to shrink the vision or stretch the people to reach it. If you want to do big things, you need to take people out of their comfort zones. They might fail. They might implode. They might relieve their own tension by fighting you or quitting. Risk always changes relationships. If you risk and win, then your people gain confidence. You have shared history that makes the relationship stronger. Trust increases, and the team is ready to take on even more difficult challenges. However, if you risk and fail, you lose relational credibility with your people, and you will have to rebuild the relationships. Risk is always present in leadership. Anytime you try to move forward, there is risk. Even if you're doing the right things, your risk isn't reduced. But there is no progress without risk, so you need to get used to it. The bottom line is that you can slow down early in your leadership to build relationships on level 2, or you can forge ahead trying to skip straight to level 3. But if you do, you will have to backtrack later to build those relationships. And you need to recognize that doing that will slow your momentum, and it will actually take you longer to build the team than if you did it the right way in the first place. Starbucks founder Howard Schultz said, "If people relate to the company they work for, if they form an emotional tie to it and buy into its dreams, they will pour their hearts into making it better." I believe that is true. What is the key link between people and the company? The leader they work with. That leader is the face, heart, and hands of the company on a day-to-day basis. If that leader connects and cares, that makes a huge difference. As you reflect on the upsides, downsides, best behaviors, and beliefs related to the permission level of leadership, use the following guidelines to help you grow as a leader. Number 1, be sure you have the right attitude toward people. The key issue when it comes to the permission level of leadership is how much you like people and how much they like you. And here's the good news. You can control how much you like people, and in general, if you genuinely like people, they will find you to be likable. This may seem too simplistic, but make a decision to like everyone from today forward. Even if they don't like you, write out that intention, then sign it and date it. If you need to, keep it in front of you as a daily reminder to make people a priority. Number 2, connect with yourself. To become someone who is good at building relationships with others, you must become the kind of person you would want to spend time with. Using the 5 components listed in this chapter for connecting with yourself, put yourself on a growth plan that will help you to win the following. Self-awareness. Know your personality type, temperament, talents, strengths, and weaknesses. Self-image. Deal with any personal issues you may have so that you can think of yourself in a positive way. Self-honesty. Look at yourself realistically and decide to face reality, no matter how much it may hurt. Self-improvement. Make a commitment to grow in your ability to develop relationships. Self-responsibility. Acknowledge that you are responsible for your own actions and attitudes. Number 3, understand where you're coming from. Are you a naturally relational person who tends to put people ahead of productivity? Or are you an achiever who tends to put productivity ahead of people? You must recognize which you are and learn to win both relationships and results. Number 4, express value for each person on your team. Take some time and come up with positive things that you can honestly say about each person on your team. Then take the time during the next week to tell each person at least one positive thing about themselves. Number 5, evaluate where you are with your team. Write a list with the names of the people on your team. Now for each, determine how well you know them by answering the following questions, which come from materials the Eli Lilly Corporation developed from the 5 levels of leadership. What 3 non-business things do you know about this person? What does this person value? What are this person's top 3 concerns? What does this person want or hope for in life? If you are unable to answer these questions for someone on your team, then you need to spend more time getting to know that person. Set aside time this week to get to know him or her better. Number 6, accept the whole person as a part of leading. If you want to be a good leader, you don't get to use people's time and skills while ignoring or neglecting the rest of them as individuals. That's not fair or right. Learn to accept responsibility for helping people and dealing with the messy side of leadership, or step down and get out of leading without standing on the sidelines and criticizing the way other people lead. Number 7, make fun a goal. One of the best ways for goal-oriented individuals to develop a more people-oriented style of leadership is to try to make the workplace more fun. If you're more task-oriented than people-oriented, then make fun a goal on your to-do list. That will make it more palatable for you while at the same time making you more likable. Number 8, give people your undivided attention. Many people in the workplace today feel dehumanized and demoralized. They believe that the leaders and organizations they work for don't care about them as people. To counter that, when you engage with people, pay attention and really listen. Few things communicate that you care for people better than giving them your undivided attention, and it doesn't cost you anything but time. Number 9, become your team's encourager-in-chief. People are naturally attracted to people who give them confidence and make them feel good about themselves. You can be a leader who does that if you're willing to become an intentional encourager. Try it out. For the next 2 weeks, say something encouraging to someone on your team every day. Then watch to see how that person responds. Do that with everyone on your team, and they will not only want to work with you, but they will also get more done. Number 10, practice care and candor. If you care about your people, you'll want to be honest with them in a way that helps them. When you see that someone on your team is making mistakes or in some way falling short, plan to talk with that person immediately. Use the caring candor checklist to make sure that you do it in the right way. And remember, it's hard to go wrong as long as you're practicing the golden rule. Making things happen separates real leaders from wannabes. The production level is where leadership really takes off and shifts into another gear. Production qualifies and separates true leaders from people who merely occupy leadership positions. Good leaders always make things happen. They get results. They can make a significant impact on an organization. Not only are they productive individually, but they also are able to help the team produce. This ability gives level 3 leaders confidence, credibility, and increased influence. No one can fake level 3. Either you're producing for the organization and adding to its bottom line, whatever that may be, or you're not. Thomas Watson, the founder of IBM, noted, "The outstanding leaders of every age are those who set up their own quotas and constantly exceed them." That is a good description of a level 3 leader. They are self-motivated and productive. As a result, they create momentum and develop an environment of success, which makes the team better and stronger. Another benefit of leadership on level 3 is that it attracts other highly productive people. Producers are attractive to other producers. They respect one another. They enjoy collaborating. They get things done together. That ultimately creates growth for the organization. Leaders can get to level 1 for an almost endless number of reasons. They show promise, they have connections, they play politics, they have seniority, the organization is desperate, you name it. and someone has probably received a leadership position because of it. Leaders who are naturally good with people or who take pains to learn people skills can move up to level 2. But some people never move up from level 2 permission to level 3 production. Why? They can't seem to produce results. When that is the case, it's usually because they lack the self-discipline, work ethic, organization, or skills to be productive. However, if you desire to go to higher levels of leadership, you simply have to produce. There is no other way around it. The upside of production. You now have leadership credibility. With the addition of production, people's leadership really begins to hit its stride. Built on a foundation of strong relationships, leaders who get results dramatically improve their team and organization. There are so many upsides to level 3. Here are 6. Number 1, leadership production gives credibility to the leader. The ability to produce results has always been the separation line for success. It is also the qualifying line for leadership. Peter Drucker, often described as the father of modern management, expressed it this way: there are 2 types of people in the business community: those who produce results and those who give you reasons why they didn't. Authentic leaders know the way and show the way to productivity. Their leadership talk is supported by their walk. They deliver results. They live on their performance, not their potential. They lead by example. And their ability to get results tends to silence their critics and build their reputations. Colin Powell asserted, "You can issue all the memos and give all the motivational speeches you want. But if the rest of the people in your organization don't see you putting forth your very best effort every single day, they won't either." Level 3 leaders take their people where they want them to go. They don't send them there. They are more like tour guides than travel agents. Why? Because people always believe what we do more than what we say. Therefore, the credibility of a level 3 leader can be summed up in one word: example. Recently, I ran across the story of a great general from history named Epaminondas. A leader of Thebes, he was a brilliant military tactician who defeated the vaunted Spartans. His victories brought him great acclaim, but they also produced enemies within his own city. The opponents of Epaminondas could find no easy way to destroy or discredit him, so instead they sought to humiliate him. They put him in charge of collecting the city's garbage, a thankless job in a filthy city. Even though he knew his appointment to the job was done out of spite and was meant to humiliate him, he accepted it with dignity, saying, "If the position will not reflect glory on me, I will reflect glory on the work." I suspect that the story is apocryphal, but it still proves the point. If we do our work with excellence and help others to be productive, we gain great leadership credibility. I found this to be true in my own career. As I was graduating from college with a bachelor's degree, 2 churches offered me the job of being their pastor. One was in Maysville, Kentucky. It offered an excellent salary and benefits and was an exceptional place to begin my ministry career. The other was in Hillham, Indiana. It was a very small church in the middle of nowhere that could not afford to pay me a full-time salary. I chose Hillham over Maysville. Why? I wanted to prove to myself and others that I could lead people and build a congregation. My father advised me that Hillham would be a better place to learn. It was one of my best decisions as a leader. During the 3 years that I led that church, it grew and prospered in many ways. Many people began to attend the church for the first time. People were growing spiritually, and we were recognized as the fastest-growing church in the denomination. We even had to buy land and build a new building. It was in Hillham that I learned to move up from level 1 position to level 2 permission to level 3 production. My leadership credibility among my peers was established there, and doors for greater opportunities quickly opened to me. Those are some of the reasons I say that every young leader should have a place like Hillham to learn how to lead. Poet Walt Mason wrote a poem called The Welcome Man, which describes the credibility that level 3 leaders have. Here's an excerpt. "There is a man in the world who is never turned down wherever he chances to stray. He gets the glad hand in the populous town or out where the farmers make hay. He is greeted with pleasure on deserts of sand and deep in the aisles of the woods. Wherever he goes, there's the welcoming hand. He's the man who delivers the goods." People welcome achievers who deliver the goods, who get results. Number 2, Leadership production models and sets the standard for others visually. Producers and achievers always have an impact on the people who work with them and for them. To illustrate the point, I want to share with you my all-time favorite story called Sell, Not Spell. Now, that is sell, S-E-L, not spell, S-P-E-L. A newly hired traveling salesman wrote his first sales report to the home office. It so stunned the brass in the sales department because it was obvious that the new salesperson was ignorant. He obviously couldn't spell. Here's what he wrote. I seen this outfit, which they ain't never bought a dime's worth of nothing from us, and I sold them some goods. I'm now going to Chicago. Before the man could be given the heave-ho by the sales manager, along came this letter from Chicago. I come here and sold them $500,000. Fearful if he did, and afraid if he didn't fire the ignorant salesman, the sales manager dumped the problem in the lap of the president. The following morning, the ivory-towered sales department members were amazed to see, posted on the bulletin board above the 2 letters written by the ignorant salesman, this memo from the president with equally atrocious spelling. We've been spending too much time trying to spell, S-P-E-L, instead of trying to sell, S-E-L. Let's watch those sales, S-A-I-L, less. I want everybody should read these letters from Gooch, who is on the road doing a great job for us, and you should go out and do like he done. Okay, I admit that it's a corny story, but I just love it because it shows how loudly productivity speaks to any organization. Gooch in the story may not be a level 3 speller, but he is certainly a level 3 producer. And as a result, the company president held up his example as a standard to follow. That's how it is in leadership. Productivity puts people at the head of the class. And when the producer has already done the slow work of building relationships on level 2, his or her leadership really takes off. I had to learn this the hard way. When I came out of college, someone could have written a book about all the things I didn't know. I was just a kid and had no idea how little I knew. But I liked people and I worked hard, and I could produce. As a result, new worlds opened up to me very quickly. I was surprised and pleased when people started asking me to speak at conferences to tell my story. As a result, my influence began to grow, and soon leaders began to visit our church and ask more questions. Many times these leaders were older and much more experienced than I was. I found that very humbling, but it also inspired me to want to help people more. That was when I began to develop resources. I wanted to keep helping people long after my personal contact with them was finished. This eventually led to my writing books and being published. I don't tell you this to brag. What I'm really trying to communicate is that anyone who can produce has a chance to influence people at a higher level. That's the power of level 3 production. If you can develop solid relationships with people and you can produce, you can be an effective leader. Productive leaders are an example to the people they lead, and their productivity sets the standard for the team. President Abraham Lincoln recognized this. During the American Civil War, the president relieved General John C. Fremont of his command. He said it was for this reason. His cardinal mistake is that he isolates himself and allows no one to see him. Lincoln knew that leaders need to be among their people, inspiring them with their ability, letting them see what the standard should be for their performance. When leaders produce, so do their people. Productive leaders thrive on results from themselves and the team. They show the way for others to follow. Number 3, leadership production brings clarity and reality to the vision. Good leaders constantly communicate the vision of the organization. They do it clearly, creatively, and continually. But that doesn't mean that everyone who receives the message understands and embraces it. The production level of leadership communicates the vision through action, which helps people understand it in ways that they may not have before. When followers see positive results and see goals being met, they get a clearer picture of what it means to fulfill the vision. One day during the American Revolutionary War, George Washington rode up to a group of soldiers trying to raise a beam to a high position. The corporal who was overseeing the work kept shouting the words of encouragement, but they couldn't manage to do it. After watching their lack of success, Washington asked the corporal why he didn't join in and help. The corporal replied quickly, "Do you realize that I am the corporal?" Washington very politely replied, "I beg your pardon, Mr. Corporal. I did." Washington dismounted his horse and went to work with the soldiers until the beam was put into place. Wiping the perspiration from his face, he said, "If you should need help again, call on Washington, your commander-in-chief, and I will come." Level 3 leaders help their people see what productivity looks like, and with each day of productivity, the team gets one step closer to making the vision a reality. That encourages members of the team. It validates their efforts. It makes the vision that much clearer. And clarity is compelling. Productivity also expands the vision because with increased confidence and skill, the people doing the work recognize that they can actually accomplish more than they may have believed was possible. Number 4, leadership production solves a multitude of problems. Many people in leadership positions try to solve problems by using systems, or they pay others to try to solve the problems for them. But the truth is, leaders cannot delegate the solving of problems to someone else. They have to be active in breaking through obstacles, putting out fires, correcting mistakes, and directing people. Leaders on the production level do that. And once their effectiveness becomes contagious and spreads throughout the team, productivity begins to solve many problems, many more than management or consultants ever will. Historian and essayist Thomas Carlyle observed, "Nothing builds self-esteem and self-confidence like accomplishment." Productivity is inspiring. People who feel good about themselves often produce good results, and good results create positive momentum and high morale. For years, I wondered which comes first, high morale or high productivity. I have heard good arguments for both sides of this chicken or egg question. I have seen high morale stimulate production, and I've also seen productivity create high morale. I can't say that it always happens one way, but here's what I do know. Remove production and high morale will fade fast. Keep producing, and high morale will continue for a long time. Leaders who can produce positive results on level 3 always have a positive impact on their team. Leaders who can't produce always hurt their team. In the War of 1812, the American general William Winder led his forces to defeat against the British, despite a 4-to-1 troop superiority. In the process, he was taken prisoner. However, realizing that Winder's incompetence made him an ideal opponent, the British returned him to the American army. As a result, when the British later attacked the American capital, they were able to overcome defending forces led by Winder and burn much of it to the ground. If Winder had been able to advance to level 3 in leadership prior to taking command as a general, perhaps his men could have stopped the British Army's advances in battles. As it was, he succeeded only in hurting the American cause. Productive organizations led by level 3 leaders are hard to beat. Their effectiveness is high, and so is their morale. Former General George C. Marshall said, "Morale is a state of mind. It is steadfastness and courage and hope. It is confidence and zeal and loyalty. It is staying power, the spirit which endures to the end, the will to win. With it, all things are possible. Without it, everything else is for naught." Number 5, leadership production creates momentum. When well-led organizations sustain high morale and high productivity over time, they gain momentum, which is any leader's best friend. Momentum helps a leader do anything and everything more easily. That's why I call it the great exaggerator. Without momentum, everything is harder to do than it should be. With it, everything is easier. My wife and I live in coastal Florida on a river that flows into the ocean about a mile from our house. So every day we witness the ebb and the flow of the tide. I sometimes enjoy swimming in the river, and I've made a discovery. When I'm swimming with the tide, my progress has little to do with the speed and the strength of my strokes. It is determined by how fast the tide is moving. Swim with it, and you make fast progress. Swim against it, and you move very slowly, no matter how hard you work at it. When the tide is up, all the boats rise. When it is down, all the boats go down. it's hard to fight the tide. The same is to be said of leadership momentum. Have it on your side and your performance is actually better than your capability. For example, think about what happened with Apple when the company introduced the iPhone. It created a tidal wave of momentum and vastly increased their market share not only in smartphones, but also in computers. After years of being marginalized as a niche company with relatively small but very loyal following, they are now mainstream again and going strong. That's why I often advise leaders to spend less time trying to fix problems and more time trying to create momentum. Level 3 is a momentum-producing environment. Production-level leaders understand momentum and use it to the organization's advantage. And they also understand that not everyone in an organization helps to create momentum. Here's what I mean. There are 3 types of people when it comes to momentum. They are momentum takers. The vast majority of people don't start anything, nor do they stop anything. They just go along for the ride. If momentum is moving, they move with it. If it has stopped, so do they. Their productivity and effectiveness are based almost entirely on what others do to make things happen in the organization. For that reason, they need good leaders who produce and create a productive environment. That is one of the reasons why I define morale as faith in the leader. Momentum breakers. The second type of person actually hurts morale and momentum in an organization. Not only do they not produce, but they prevent others from producing. These types of people cause problems and, whether intentionally or not, hurt the organization. Momentum makers. The final type, momentum makers, are level 3 leaders. They produce. They make things happen. They create momentum. Their behavior is consistent with the advice given by the legendary Alabama football coach Paul Bear Bryant, who said, "Don't worry about making friends. Don't worry about making enemies. Worry about winning. Because if you win, your enemies can't hurt you, and if you lose, your friends can't stand you." If you build solid permissional relationships on top of a foundation of positional rights and add the results of productivity, you will gain momentum. And when you do, you'll find that your work comes to fruition more quickly. That is a benefit of level 3. Number 6. Leadership production is the foundation for team building. Who wants to leave a championship team? No one. Who wants to leave the cellar dweller? Everyone. People simply love being on a winning team. Winners attract people, some good, some bad, some average. The key to building a winning team is recognizing, selecting, and retaining the best people from the ones you attract. The good news is that if you reach level 3, you know what productivity looks like because you live it. The bad news is that having talented people on the team doesn't automatically guarantee success. You can still lose with good players, but you cannot win without them. The difference comes from building them into a team, which I'll discuss later in this chapter. But remember this, if you aren't a proven producer, you won't attract and keep other proven producers. That's why you need to win level 3. The downside of production. The weight of leadership just got heavier. Like everything else in life, the production level of leadership has its downsides as well as its upsides. With level 3 leadership, achievement within the organization becomes easier. However, the leadership itself doesn't become easy. Here are the 4 main downsides I've discovered on level 3. Number 1, being productive can make you think you're a leader when you're not. All great leaders are productive. However, it is possible to be a producer and not a leader. Personal success does not always translate into team success. Leadership is defined by what a person does with and for others. It is established by making the team better and more productive. It's measured by what the entire group accomplishes, not by the individual efforts of a person in charge. Good leadership is never based on what someone does by and for himself. I know many individual producers who have no desire or ability to lead others. Some don't have the people skills. Others don't have the desire to be responsible for others or take the time to help them become productive. For example, Ted Williams was one of the greatest hitters in baseball. He is the last player to have a batting average over 400 during a season. Yet he was not a successful hitting coach. When his players were not hitting well, he would say, "Keep your eye on the ball." That advice was given by a man with extraordinary coordination who was successful because he was able to look at a ball and tell what kind of a pitch it was by how the stitching moved. In his mind, it was all simple. All he did was keep his eye on the ball. His players who were less talented needed more instruction. Ted Williams was a great player, but he never made it as a leader in baseball. Organizations all over the world make the mistake of putting high producers into leadership positions only to watch them fail to lead well. I've done that. I've seen someone make things happen and thought, wow, this person is going to be a fantastic leader, only to have that person continue to make things happen for himself, but ignore and demoralize his team. That's not leadership. Why is this mistake made so often? Because a prerequisite for being an effective leader is the ability to be effective yourself. That is one of the qualifying marks of a leader, but it is not the only qualification. Good leaders must establish themselves in their position on level 1, gain people's permission on level 2, be productive on level 3, and possess the desire to take the entire team to a higher level. Number 2, productive leaders feel a heavy weight of responsibility for results. I once saw a cartoon depicting a sales meeting in which the speaker said, "We run our business like a game show. Produce and you come back. Don't produce and we have some lovely parting gifts for you." That's humorous, but that's also the way it is for leaders. If a football team doesn't win, the coach gets fired. If a corporation doesn't make profits, the CEO gets the axe. If a politician doesn't do a good job for his constituents, he doesn't get reelected. In any organization, the responsibility for results rests with the leader. What the World War II British Field Marshal Bernard Law Montgomery said was true. No leader, however great, can long continue unless he wins victories. Productivity is measurable. Organizational growth is tangible. Profitability is quantifiable. Leaders who fail to increase them are held accountable. Leaders who add to them are rewarded, and then asked to achieve even more the next time. High performance requires high commitment. Honestly, many leaders who reach level 3 tire of leading because of the weight of responsibility they feel. Most leaders experience days when they wish no one was watching their performance, looking to them for direction, or wanting them to make something happen. However, effective leaders understand that the cost of leadership is carrying the responsibility of their team's success on their shoulders. That is the weight every leader feels starting on level 3. You will have to decide whether you're willing to carry it. Number 3, production leadership requires making difficult decisions. A large corporation recently made a stray dog a senior vice president. When asked why they would do such a thing, the board of directors replied, "His ability to get along with everyone, his prompt response to a pat on the back, his interest in watching others work, and his great knack for looking wise while saying nothing made him a natural for the position." If only leadership were really that easy. Whenever you see a thriving organization, you can be sure that its leaders made some very tough decisions and are continuing to make them. Success is an uphill journey. People don't coast their way to effective leadership. Environmental advocate T. Boone Pickens says, "Be willing to make decisions. That's the most important quality in a good leader." If you want to lead at a higher level, be ready to make difficult decisions. On level 2, leaders often have to start making difficult people decisions. On level 3, leaders continue to make those, but also add difficult production decisions. That makes leadership even more difficult. I've already told you about how difficult I found it to make decisions early in my career. You may find it helpful to know that today, as I look back, I regret the decisions I failed to make more than I do the wrong decisions I did make. Don't fall into the same trap I did of postponing decisions when I should have made them. What kinds of difficult decisions are leaders likely to make on level 3? Most of them will be decisions you must make related to yourself. I found that about 25% of the decisions I make on level 3 relate to my team. The rest are personal ones that require change, honesty, and self-discipline. As the American writer Mark Twain said, "To do right is wonderful. To teach others to do right is even more wonderful and much easier." That is so true. As a leader on level 3, you must make the difficult decision to be successful before you try to help others be successful. Hold yourself to a higher standard than you ask of others. Make yourself accountable to others. Set tangible goals and then reach them. Accept responsibility for personal results. Admit failure and mistakes quickly and humbly. Ask from others only what you have previously asked of yourself. Gauge your success on results, not intentions. And remove yourself from situations where you are ineffective. It has been my observation that when leaders are confronted with these difficult decisions on level 3, many fail to make them. What they may not understand until it's too late is that failing to do so will eventually disqualify them from leading themselves or others. Their leadership potential becomes stunted and they cannot remain on level 3. I can remember facing each of these decisions on level 3. It took me a long time to make some of them. It certainly wasn't easy. Sometimes it still isn't. But each decision created a personal breakthrough in my leadership journey. I encourage you to win in this area of your leadership life. Persevere, even in moments when you feel the way Moses must have felt when the Red Sea parted and the people waited for him to take them forward, saying to himself, "Why must I always go first?" Going first may not always be easy or fun, but it is always a requirement of leaders. It paves the way for the people who follow and increases their chances of success for completing the journey. Number 4, production leadership demands continued attention to level 2. Becoming accountable for the productivity of the team does not mean that leaders can stop caring for the people they lead. Remember, just because you add a new level of leadership doesn't mean you leave the previous one behind. There is a real temptation for leaders on the production level to neglect relationships in pursuit of achieving a good bottom-line result. However, if leaders do that for an extended period of time, they burn their relationships with their people, and they will eventually find themselves back on level 1. Don't fall into that trap. Keep developing the relationships and caring for them as you produce results. Best behaviors on level 3. How to make the most of production in leadership. Moving up through level 3 based upon solid level 2 relationships is no small feat for any person. Many people find themselves incapable of achieving it. If you have the opportunity, here's what you need to do to make the most of it. Number 1, understand how your personal giftedness contributes to the vision. One of the keys to the production level of leadership is understanding how your gifts and abilities can be used productively to further the vision of the organization. Part of that is personal. In previous chapters, I discussed the importance of knowing yourself and deciding on your personal leadership style. This is slightly different. If you are a leader, you must have a sense of vision for your leadership, and it must align, at least during the current season, with the vision of the organization you serve. It took me a long time to develop a sense of where my true strengths lie and how I could serve an organization that I lead. Discovering it took effort, and the process was often messy. But eventually I came to understand that I had special gifts and abilities, and so do you. There is a strong relationship between giftedness and effectiveness as a leader on the production level. If I ever wanted to reach my potential as a leader, I had to know what my personal contribution could be to the organization. The same is true for you. As an example, I'll tell you the 4 areas where I personally contribute the most to the productivity of an organization or a team. Influencing people, which is leadership. Connecting with people, that's my relationship skills. Communicating with people, speaking, and creating resources to help people, writing. These comprise my strength zone. They are the key to production for me and where the best results will be realized. Knowing this doesn't let me off the hook as far as growth and learning are concerned. I am as committed to learning and growing today as I was back in the early 1970s when I started my first personal growth plan. The difference is that now I concentrate almost exclusively on growing in those 4 areas. After discovering what I was made to do, I began to focus my efforts. The more focused you are within your talents, the more rapid the rate of growth and the greater you increase your overall potential to be a productive leader.